BlackRock just came out and said that they are going to be building their own tech for the tokenization of the financial system. And a lot of people are wondering, is this competition for everything Ripple and XRP have been building for the past 13 years? Well, in this video, I want to talk about what this actually means for Ripple and XRP going forward, and talk about whether or not this is going to be some big competition for the XRP ledger and what Ripple has been doing to tokenize the financial system. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Guys, thank you to everyone who's shown support over the past couple videos. Been quite the transition process, but I cannot appreciate your support enough, so thank you so much. If anyone out there is looking for a great place to buy XRP, make sure to check out Uphold using the link in the description of this video. With that said, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So just the other day, we found out that BlackRock is going to be essentially developing their own tech to tokenize assets in the traditional financial system and put them on DLT rails. Now, at its core, this is one of the things that we have been talking about for a very long time on this channel, and for two real reasons. One, a lot of people look at tokenization as a huge thing that is going to change the financial architecture as we know it. But not a lot of people truly understand why it's so important and why the XRP ledger is so well positioned to capture that volume. If we take a look at the importance of tokenization, it really comes down to the infrastructure of settling, tracking, and accounting for where these different tokenized assets land, are owned, and really where liquidity from them is being driven from. Tokenized assets do something very unique and critical that the traditional financial system cannot do, and that is natively track in completely uncopyable identifier to these tokenized assets in a native value form on the internet. And I know that was a lot to really digest right there, but essentially tokenizing assets allows, for the first time in history, assets to actually be represented, tracked, and accounted for on the internet. This is a huge infrastructure upgrade, because if you take a look at how the traditional financial system works, it requires a lot of tiresome, burdensome tracking, a lot of parties involved, a lot of really manual and labor-intensive middlemen, taking up a lot of fees, taking up a lot of time, taking up a lot of resources, and if all these things can be automated and done natively in the internet, well, then you can vastly increase the efficiency, you can drastically increase the liquidity, you can drastically innovate on new product sets at a much faster rate, and you can just take advantage of a huge infrastructure upgrade for assets that already retain a lot of value. This is one of the biggest things that people miss out on. It's not that tokenization hasn't taken off, it's not that tokenization the tech isn't here already. It's really that the firms that hold the trillions of dollars worth of assets haven't been given the clarity up until now to actually step into this new emerging infrastructure and take advantage of the benefits that it's going to add. So what we're seeing right now is a lot of these institutions are now hearing that, hey, you can get started and get going with this. But one of the things that really is still left outstanding is how is it going to shake up in terms of where is the deal flow going to land? What blockchain is going to be used? What is going to be the most important critical infrastructure for this tokenized financial system we're heading into? If you take a look at the XRP ledger has two distinct advantages over the rest of the cryptocurrency industry. And I say two, but I'll probably list a lot more. If you take a look at the very early stages of the cryptocurrency industry, the XRP ledger was the first blockchain to support native tokenization. The XRP ledger was created for tokenization. And the reason why it was created that way was because the people behind the XRP ledger recognized something very important. The world was not going to move away from the United States dollar. The world was not going to move away from treasuries, bonds, derivatives, all these different forms of value. While the Bitcoin ethos was to rip apart the old system, the XRP ledger's ethos was to rebuild a new system, one with better software to allow a more efficient financial system. It wasn't to completely destroy and replace the current system, it was to upgrade it. And this is one of the core principles of the XRP ledger. Therefore, the features on the XRP ledger to allow for native tokenization were built as the XRP ledger's primary use case. It's one of the most important things, and that's why the XRP ledger has a native DEX. I've talked about this many times on the channel, but it's so important to wrap your head around. The XRP ledger really at its core function is a decentralized clearinghouse. It allows you to tokenize representations of value and clear that value automated and decentralized. Tokenize an asset, you can swap it for any other asset in the world. XRP acts as the native liquidity. The XRP ledger is really a decentralized clearinghouse for the internet's new financial system that's being built. And it was built that way. It has the resilience of 13 years and has been proven and tested and built up liquidity while the rest of the industry was focused on either meme coins, tearing down the old financial system, not working with banks, not working with these people who hold all the assets. On top of that, Ripple's been working with these traditional financial institutions for a very long time and implementing features to the XRP ledger that makes it usable. Something that not a lot of people realize is that even if financial institutions wanted to tokenize some of these assets, they still have tremendous headwinds in front of them, including whether or not they are interacting with people they're not allowed to interact with, right? Whether or not they can claw back these assets, whether or not they can freeze them. These are all features that are top of mind for Ripple because they have been working with financial institutions and understand their needs and understand what are the primary use cases that are holding these financial institutions out of these ecosystems right now. It's this knowledge and this expertise that I believe is going to put Ripple in a position to win and the XRP ledger as the ultimate beneficiary as we recreate the new system as we know it today. With that said though, it begs the question, if someone like BlackRock is stepping into the tokenization arena and they already have the clients, right, and they have the firepower to build something, is the XRP ledger ultimately going to be disrupted by this new emerging tech? And that's the most important part of what we need to focus on here. BlackRock, JP Morgan, all these other financial institutions, guess what, are going to have their own tokenization capabilities. But BlackRock has said it themselves. This doesn't necessarily mean that the public chains aren't important. And actually, BlackRock came out and specifically said that public chains are going to be the most important piece of infrastructure in this new emerging financial system, not the private walled gardens. And what this really means is so critical. BlackRock, JP Morgan, all these massive banks are all going to need infrastructure privately and internally, and also to interoperate and interact with public blockchains. If I'm BlackRock right now, right, I need to upgrade my infrastructure as quickly as possible, or I am at risk of being disrupted. Now, BlackRock's risk of being disrupted, albeit is a lot smaller than your local community bank, but guess what? Coinbase IPOing at the market cap they IPO'd at, that's a threat to these traditional banks. Coinbase innovating on products, Circle coming in and handling more transactions than Visa, Ripple coming in and becoming one of the largest balance sheet companies in the entire world with their XRP holdings. These types of things are massively threatening to the old guard. And that's why you see a big shift in narrative. They are scared of falling behind on this stuff. They are going to have their own internal tech in order to upgrade their internal systems. But that's not going to extend external. If I'm a Bank of America CEO, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, double thumbs up to BlackRock's tokenization platform. No, I'm going to say we're using our own tokenization platform. If I'm Citi, right, I'm not going to jump on board and say, hey, let's use Bank of America's tokenization platform. No. And that's a big reason why things like Zelle are so siloed, right? Bank of America has Zelle as an internal money transfer protocol. But people really only use Zelle for internal payments between family members. They don't extend it outside of it because no other bank really wants to support Zelle that much, right? Any other bank is just going to say, hey, just use your own internal transfer protocol. That's why people ultimately use things like PayPal and Venmo because it's a lot more neutral, right? Those things are just kind of universally accepted. Bank of America doesn't want to say, hey, let's go support Citi's product, but PayPal, they're not really a competitor. Let's support them. David Schwartz made this quote, and I think it's one of the most important things to ever understand about the world we're heading into. Most financial institutions are going to choose no boss over a boss. And if you're Citi, you don't want Bank of America to be your boss. If you're a small community bank, you don't want Citi to be your boss. None of them want BlackRock to be their boss, and none of them want to give up power. But if the choice is giving power to their biggest competitor or giving power to a neutral, decentralized transfer protocol that everyone can agree on has equal and set rules, that's ultimately going to be the solution that a lot of people pick. Because a lot of people out there aren't BlackRock or Citi or Bank of America, and they don't have any chance of becoming the boss. And what's better for them? Making their biggest competitor their boss or moving to a platform where there is no boss? That's where the XRP ledger is uniquely positioned. And nothing that these different banks or asset managers can create can ever disrupt the fact that what they're building is nothing more than an own internal product set. It will never reach the level of what the XRP ledger has done with public liquidity. That's the golden goose. If Google owned the internet, no one would use the internet as it is today. Everyone would just go to essentially their own internal database. So you'd have Amazon's internet, you'd have Google's internet, but that's not the way it was built out. Instead, Amazon and Google built private applications on top of the public internet. Just like BlackRock, Citi, and Bank of America will build their own applications on top of these different blockchains for the public liquidity. Ultimately, it's going to come down to which blockchain best services the needs of these different financial giants. And that's why I talked about the history of the XRP ledger at the beginning of this video. It was built for this. Ripple has been building the relationships for this, and now we're entering prime time. So do I think BlackRock's new tokenization platform is going to be negative for Ripple or XRP? No, it's going to be massively beneficial. It shows that for the first time ever, we are seeing the movement we have been waiting for. There's real interest and people are scared of falling behind. They don't have time to recreate the XRP ledger's track record. But what they do have time to do is jump on board. They're rapidly shifting their systems to catch up and figure out how they cannot be left in the dust. So these are all proactive steps in proving that this technology is a lot more than some fad or something that is interesting on a retail level. No, this is attracting the interest of the largest asset managers on earth, and they are moving quickly to not be left in the dust. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update, and for now, Mickle out.